And away we go. It's a special Sunday night live edition of the Nightcap brought to you by Hail Mary Sports Bar right here on BearcatJournal.com. Go visit our good friends at Hail Mary's. They're located in Cheviot on Harrison Avenue. They're in the Dora District. You can walk from bar to bar with your drinks. But why do that when you can watch the NCAA tournament at Hail Mary's? 27 TVs. 9-screen video wall. There's not a bad seat in the house. They subscribe to every sports package DirecTV offers. Cincinnati sports will always be on the video wall. Brand new walk-in cooler, brand new draft lines. And they pour the coldest beer around, but they do so in 32.8 degree beer frosted glasses. Go get yourself a Cincy Light and visit our good friends at Hail Mary's. What's going on, Aaron?
We're here.
We are. It's been a pretty long weekend. Kelsey had a volleyball tournament down in Louisville. We finished second in our division. So that was good. Lost a close championship game this morning. Got back home, got to watch some basketball, got to watch the selection show. Whoa. We'll get to that in a little bit. This is, if you're wondering, this is not because I went to a club that I've got a stamp on my hand. This is so I can get in and out of the volleyball tournament.
Would never have asked.
Well, I mean, I just was looking at my hand right here, and I was like, oh, yeah. So we have quite a bit to get to. A lot of UC stuff as well that we'll start with the UC stuff. And then get into the Big 12 teams in the tournament and some overall thoughts. You know, we're college basketball junkies here. Get into some overall thoughts on the tournament as well. How's your weekend been, Aaron? I'll get a tweet out here while you tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Weekend was fine. We only had one power surge. We didn't actually lose power, so that was good. I think we were without internet actually longer than we were without power, as we ended up without internet for an hour and a half. But yeah, anytime you see a storm coming through, we get a little nervous out here in the sticks. But that was good. Other than that, we have a new niece. She was born, so that's good. And St. Patty's is tomorrow, so I got some Guinness for the celebration tomorrow. And by that I mean I will be just drinking Guinness in the background tomorrow when we record our show. So yeah, that's pretty much what has been going on with me.
Yeah, Kelsey's been she's been like you got to experience it. She's been a parrot over my shoulder for like the last 2 hours.
For like the last 2 years. What are you talking about? I mean,
it's been a lot today. She came home from volleyball and took like a 5-hour nap. So she is like she's running on jet fuel tonight. She might come down and just start talking basketball at some point in time. I've got the taser ready, so we'll see how that goes. She's all excited. Kentucky's lowering the driving age to 15 in the state. So
that decision was made. That decision was made by people who do not live in cities.
Read that comment.
Has Brent asked off from the BBP for St. Patty's Day yet? No, but he'll probably any minute ask if we can move it up to 5. So because he's got something going on with work.
Yeah, no, it's his grandma or his uncle or
a relative, something. Yeah, a wedding, perhaps.
It's coming, Josh. It's coming. He hasn't done it yet, but it's coming. First off, I guess first topic we'll get to is will Cincinnati be participating in the postseason? All signs right now are pointing to yes, Aaron.
I wanted to be done.
Crown will announce their field tomorrow morning or tomorrow at some point in time. I don't know exactly when. Remember, this is a tournament owned and operated by Fox. Fox has contracts with the Big East, the Big Ten, and the Big 12. Surprisingly enough, Aaron, this surprised me when I looked it up. So it's supposed to be the top two teams from those three leagues, the Big Ten, the Big East, the Big 12. The top two teams in the net that don't make the NCAA tournament are automatic qualifiers, I guess is the right way to put it. They are automatic qualifiers in the Crown tournament.
The biggest losers.
The biggest losers. The skinniest kids at fat camp, Aaron. Cincinnati's actually number one. I know
No, they're not. West Virginia would be number one.
Wrong.
No way. No way.
Cincinnati is 2 spots ahead of West Virginia in the net.
That should tell you that the net's broken. The net's broken. All of this, everything's broken.
The net has Cincinnati at like 51 and West Virginia, I think, at 53, something like that, the last time I looked at it. So Cincinnati would be the highest ranked net team in the Big 12, which would make them an automatic qualifier for the Crown tournament. Obviously, the conference wants those two teams to play.
Sure.
It is contractual with Fox, who is their TV partner. Fox is going to put pressure on the conference. The conference is going to put pressure on the teams. Like, that's why before I found out that there was a cut line, you had to have 7 scholarship players to play in this tournament. If you go below that, you can get out. Like, I know from what I've heard, Indiana expects to get out, but Mike Woodson's leaving. They're bringing in a new coach. They're not going to have 7 guys that are going to play in this tournament. So there are going to be a couple teams that you'll see that don't play in this thing. But all signs point to Cincinnati is going to play in this tournament. I mean, I would be pretty surprised. The only thing would be if they can't get to 7 scholarship players.
There's still a chance.
In counting the numbers, I think they will have.
I want to throw up.
Which Aaron and I looked it up. The Crown, we looked up the schedule since this is something that's probably going to happen. March 31st and April 1st are the first round of games. Those games will start at noon Pacific time, so 3 o'clock Eastern. And the last game will start at 8 p.m. Pacific time, so 11 o'clock Eastern time. So if somehow Cincinnati plays in this thing and ends up in the last game of the day on the first 2 days, they will be tipping off at 11 p.m.
If the game before them
at the earliest.
If the game before them doesn't go to overtime or something wonky happen, or
how do we know if we have 7 guys? Well, Raj, the people inside the athletic department are operating with more information than we are. I would guess, here's the thing. There's not a coaching turnover. There are going to be guys back on this roster, to Aaron's dismay. It is not going to be a complete gut job of this roster.
I have not.
I've
not rooted for something this hard though since Dan's flagrant 2 became a flagrant 1.
There are also, you can go into the portal and still play in this tournament. So keep that in mind. If they are in the tournament, it doesn't necessarily mean that all 7, 8, whatever guys are guaranteed to come back. That is not necessarily the case. So I do think, Aaron, that Cincinnati will be in this tournament.
I hope they aren't, but
is it official that this tournament has NIL opportunities? Yes. So my understanding is there's not money, or at least more than like a per diem type deal involved for the first 2 rounds. But if you make it into like the semifinals and the finals, there is an NIL element. And if you win the thing, your players get to split $300,000. So, yes, there is an NIL prize, if you will.
I mean, that's not that much more. I think doesn't the TBT do how much is the winner of the TBT?
Well, technically the winner of the TBT gets $1 million.
That's what I
but
thought.
that gets split a lot more ways than just the guys on the floor.
Right.
Let's just
But
say that.
I mean, you're probably still taking home more than you would with splitting 300,000 between you, unless they're feeling only 7. Unless they're feeling only 7.
Look, my guess is if they do play in this thing, it would be like 7 or 8. Like I don't think you're going to see 10, 11 players. Like they're running. You're going to see 7 or 8 probably. So look, if somebody gave you a chance to win $40,000 in a week, you would take it.
We are not built.
Don't lie.
Same. Me and these kids are not built the same. I promise you that.
You don't know that. Some of them aren't making a whole lot of NIL money, Aaron. You get a chance, like for a kid that's making 50,000, you give them a chance to go get another 40. They're almost doubling their whole paycheck for a year. No, Ed, Sean can't play. He's in high school. He hasn't graduated high school yet. No, he can't play.
He's not enrolled in classes. I guess that's the thing that people don't realize about the portal too, is just because you enter the portal and say you're going to another school and declare that you're going to another school, you still have to finish out the semester. You're not just done.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just messing with Ed because Ed's a friend. Yeah. But people have asked, like, can they go get guys in the portal and have them play? No, of course not. They were on another team 3 weeks ago.
They're still enrolled at another university. They still have to finish their classes, finish the semester out.
We're not there yet. We might get there in college sports, but we're not there yet. Take one online class, all right, I'm enrolled. Let's go. But yeah, I'm not going to say it's a 100% sure thing, but if you made me pick, they're going to play in the Crown. Can we change the rules? No, we cannot change the rules.
Well, just going to go on the record with I don't love it.
I don't love it. I don't think anybody there loves it. But look, if the conference, do you really want to piss off the conference? Just honest question.
I just think you've got to figure a different. They have to go if they're going to continue to do this tournament. You have to change.
1,000%.
Everything has to be changed. You can't do it. You run it against the NIT. Who cares?
No, it's not. That's not why they're doing it in the time that they're doing it, because that Sunday night the Elite Eight ends, and then there's no basketball until Saturday when the Final Four starts. So the idea of this tournament is to have basketball that entire week to yourself leading up to the Final Four. That's the idea behind it. I'm not saying it's a great idea. I'm just saying that's where their mindset is coming from.
It would be fine if the transfer portal was scheduled differently. And then you don't run into what you're running into. But given the transfer portal and the disdain that many people feel for any tournament that is not the NCAA tournament, I think all of the other tournaments are going to run into the same issue, not just this year, but for every year going forward. Whether you move the transfer portal or not, period.
Yeah.
Because people are going to be getting advice from their inner circle to do what you have to do to make sure that you do not get injured, because there's a lot of money riding on it.
Yeah. How many? I don't block people anymore. Bearcats. That's not really my thing. I mute them so that I don't see anything that they have to say. And then they just talk to me all the time and don't get the satisfaction of knowing that I don't see it. It makes me smile. I enjoy that more than blocking.
It's like half
because
my
they
texts
get
I
mad.
send you.
Right. Well, that's the group chat with like you and Dave and Jeff. You guys just talk amongst yourselves.
And Brent.
And Brent. Yeah, like that group text I do not really participate in. It's for the boys. I let you guys have that. I like it, I don't want to be
You drop in from the rafters every now and again,
oh
like
yeah,
Mel
if there's something interesting, I'll fly in and then I fly back out quickly. But yeah, that's what I know on the Crown. My understanding is that they're going to play in the Crown. We'll see. Unless somehow that number drops below 7. And then they would have an out. But again,
if you're
I just don't think it's
if you're of the religious type, feel free to say your prayers tonight and every night heretofore.
We'll know tomorrow. I think we'll know tomorrow whether they're in it or not. Am I going to do a ticket giveaway for the Crown? I have not planned on that, Joe. No. Nobody has offered me tickets to give away. If you're asking if I'm going to buy tickets and give them away, the answer to that is a resounding no. I will not be doing that. Do you live in Vegas, Joe? Maybe if you live in Vegas, maybe I'll see what I can do.
Is Keegan going to try and go?
No. There's a lot of things I send Keegan to, right?
I'm just saying.
If I'm sending anybody to Las Vegas, it's me.
I'm just saying he could do plenty of GTL while he's out there while eating all the Chipotle he can. I don't understand what that kid does when he's in Vegas. It's the opposite of what anyone else would do.
He doesn't tan. So what he does is GCL, Gym Chipotle. Laundry. Or,
he was like a
gym hair laundry.
He was like a 65-year-old out there. Did he take in a show?
He went and saw the Rockettes.
God, I don't understand.
Oh boy. So yeah, that's the Crown. Expect to hear news tomorrow that they're going to play in it.
That would have been the move, John. That would have been the move.
John, if it was 1 week later, Kelsey would have been on spring break, and we'd have been in Vegas. Like I'd have figured out a way to make that work.
I get that you're really enjoying all the father-daughter time, but that sounds like the worst possible co-pilot to go to Vegas with.
Yeah, awful. But awful. But so you got to do what you got to do, Aaron. Like it is what it is. Sometimes you just got to adjust and adapt. And I still would assume.
Oh my God.
No, Joe, it is not fair to assume that those who play in the Crown are guaranteed on the roster next year. We discussed that. You can you can enter the transfer portal, play in the tournament, and not be required to come back. That's between the coaching staff and the players. If they want to play, they can play. That's the tough questions I expect. Yeah, Vegas is a family town now, Aaron.
No, the tough questions I think he was referring to his own question. Who are we targeting in the portal?
Oh, yeah. Nobody yet. Like, let's.
Who's even declared? The only person I've seen declared for the portal is the kid from Iowa who also had a do not disturb sign hanging on the hotel.
There's a couple mid-major guys that have declared, but Marcus, do you think like most of the people that are going to be in play have not declared? Do you think I'm just going to like on this show openly talk about who Cincinnati's targeting that has not yet entered the portal? Come on. You guys know better than that. When there are names, and I expect the portal opens a week from tomorrow. By this time next week, things should start moving. 1 hour warning for NIT announcements. Ed, I can guarantee you one thing. Cincinnati will not be in the NIT. I will guarantee that. Cincinnati, Ohio State round 2. I mean, I don't think I don't know that Ohio State will have 7 players to play in this event. I think there's going to be a flushing of the system at Ohio State after Diebler kind of ran it back this year. Usually that's what happens, right? If they run it back, then Cincinnati did this for the most part. Year 2, the system was flushed, and right, John, we don't tamper here. There's no tampering here. Oh boy. The other thing that we needed to get to, Cincinnati has reportedly, this is a report that I am behind. I think this is an accurate report. They will be adding a general manager to the program. The name that is being bandied about is someone I'm familiar with. He worked in our world here for a while. His name's Corey Evans. He was a national college basketball writer and scout for Rivals, and turned that into a front office position with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He is somebody that Wes has been had a very good relationship for a long time. I had another name in mind along with Corey. It did not end up being that name, probably because I don't think that name would ever do it, because he would have to take a probably pretty hefty pay cut to be a college GM for a really, really good job that he has. But
you wouldn't have to live in Oregon anymore, though.
I don't think that's bad. Like, I think he's fine. People are going to freak out trying to figure that out. But in terms of what I think the GM job is going to be, this is why I was like 50-50 on like where the GM role goes in college. If it's something like this, I think it's outstanding, because you're getting somebody that not only has ties to, remember, when you're one of those national guys at a major outlet, and at the time Rivals was still very relevant in the college basketball world, you have connections to every AAU program, every AAU coach, like all of the Nike EYBL people and all of the Adidas people and all of the Under Armour people and high school coaches and prep school coaches all around the country. And then you go into the NBA life. So what are you doing when you're in the NBA? You're scouting college players constantly. So you have connections to all the high school players coming up through all of their world. And now, from being an NBA scout for, I think he left Rivals in 2021, 2022, 2021, something around there. But now you've got somebody that's deeply seated in scouting and evaluating and looking at all of the college talent that is on the board. So if that's the direction you're going to go, if that's the path that you're going to go as a GM, I think it's outstanding. Like, I think if you're just hiring a figurehead in that job, I don't know what good it does you. But if you're hiring somebody that can help you not only evaluate, but connect with high school players and college transfers, I think it gives you a massive leg up in the world of talent acquisition. So I've known Corey for a long time. I think very, very highly of him. Great dude. I think he will fit in well here. And if you want to hire somebody from any NBA franchise, the Thunder are it. Like, their ability to scout and evaluate and develop and prepare guys to be ready, like, it's as good as it gets. So,
well, their average age at Oklahoma City is less than many college. Like, the average age of starters for Oklahoma City's team is younger than many college teams. I think it's something, like 22, 23?
Yeah, they're
I
young
don't even think it's
and they're really
23.
good. They're really good.
I'm gonna look that up.
Need one for football? They have one for football, Jules. He's very good at his job. Zach Green, if you don't know.
23.2.
22.7.
23.2 is their starting five, at least
Okay.
according to Google's AI.
Connor, I'm trying to remember where exactly Corey was initially. I think up like an Atlantic Coast type of guy. I know the first time I ever met him was at an event in Pittsburgh. That doesn't mean he's from Pittsburgh, but like that's the first time I met him many, many, many moons ago when we were both young and kind of, I wasn't young. I started a little late, but getting into this world, I met him in Pittsburgh. I think he's got some ties to the East Coast, up along the Atlantic as well. So that would be kind of where I would think, like, if I had to list like a home base, but he's been in this long enough now that the web is going to spread pretty wide. Plus it gives you a guy that Wes is pretty close to. I just think, like, in terms of fit, I think it's a really good kickstart to the offseason, given all the kind of different areas that he touches that you're bringing into your program. Do you have any questions, Aaron?
No, I'm just curious to see what the role actually ends up doing initially and how it evolves over the course of time, because whatever they're doing on day one is not going to be what they're doing on day 180 or day 365 or
day
year
one
two.
is going to be, let's rebuild this roster through the portal.
Sure.
Like, that's going to be day one. And then once you get through that, then going through the year, the job will definitely take on a life of its own, if you will.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, can GMs get on the road and recruit? No. There are 3 road recruiting assistants. Here's what's interesting. It's something to keep your eye on. So you can, and we've seen this happen before, like, coaches can get waivers to where they're not on the road that week, right? Like, I've got a family thing or a wedding or my daughter's graduating college or whatever the case may be. You can get a waiver. So I wonder how many times you're going to see, like, oh, so-and-so has a family event that they're not going to be able to be out on the road this week, and filling in will be Corey Evans.
Be interesting.
I've seen it. Like, look, and I think this happened with Brian Snow, who's at Notre Dame now. Used to be in this world. Now he's basically the GM of Notre Dame. I think they had a coaching change during the recruiting period. So they were down one recruiting road assistant. So Snow was out on the road for like an entire recruiting period until they hired the next coach. So there are loopholes around, just like everything in the NCAA. There are loopholes to get around everything.
I think it'll be interesting. Tom kind of brings up a point that I'm curious about, is how tied are the GM, both in football and in basketball, how tied are the GM and their group of people who work under them, particularly in the football scheme. How tied are they to the head coach? Or when the coach goes, do they go? Or that's I think it'll be very interesting to see how that goes.
There has been a lot of talk on the football side. On basketball, this is all still pretty new. Football has been, waiting. They've gone from putting their toes in the water. Now they're wading in the water on the football side. There has been talk on the football side that ultimately the GMs are going to be hire fire. Like, the AD is going to disconnect themselves from hiring and firing coaches like the owner would, and then the GM is going to be the one responsible for bringing in and letting go head coaches.
That'll be fascinating.
Yeah. Because this is something I've heard on the football side for probably 2 years now. This conversation has come up that it's leaning in this direction. I fought against it for a while because I was like, why? Like, the AD is the person whose job is on the line.
Yeah.
But if you can get a degree of separation, if you're the AD, right? Like, I didn't hire and fire that. My job's not. I hired somebody to hire and fire that guy.
See, then I'd want to sit the AD down and ask him, what is it you'd say you do here?
More than fair. If the AD is no longer responsible for hiring and firing football and basketball coaches, I know there are other things an AD does, but what exactly?
It's a jump to conclusions, Matt. It's a mat with conclusions on it.
So, but I mean, there has been talk in football for like as these jobs have become more prominent, and you're starting to see Chad Bowden got $1 million to go to USC. Like, if you're paying the GM $1 million, and then it's going to continue to go up as the money goes up, the GM's paycheck will go up. You're going to expect them to do more than watch tape on D2 kids that might go in the transfer portal.
Hey, buddy, I used to work here.
Bring Chad back. Jules, they can't afford Chad Bowden anymore. That ship has sailed. Chad Bowden is not coming back, brother. He is making a boatload of money. I got a text from Max the other day that Max, Chad hired him to USC. He sent me. When he got the job.
When he got the job, yeah.
When he got the job, I texted him and said, "Hey, Hermosa Beach, like that's where it's at in LA." And last weekend, he sent me a picture from Hermosa Beach. Like, I'm here. I'm like, you son of a bitch. Oh, I hate him. But yeah, Max is awesome. Like, Max was a good friend of the site, and really happy for him. But now he's in Hermosa Beach, and I want to kick him.
See, and you're not even half as mad as Pat.
No, Pat's even more mad. Pat's stuck in Madison. Pat's stuck in Madison while Max is in Hermosa Beach. That's a rough situation. Caleb Davis too, yeah. But so it's going to be really interesting to see how this GM job evolves. Now, I would imagine, and I do not know this for sure, so this is just me talking out loud, to get a guy like Corey Evans away from an organization like the Oklahoma City Thunder, which for a scout has to be like the top of the mountain, right, Aaron? Like, you get to actually go out and like dig in and find some hidden gems, and they get to play at 22, 23 years old. Like, that's got to be one of the best scouting jobs on the planet for somebody in that world. I would imagine there are some assurances, not only with Wes, but with the athletic department, if you're going to bring a guy like Corey in here.
I would hope so.
If I'm Corey, I'm not taking the job unless there are.
I mean, that's how that would go, right? Like, if you are. Also, though, I mean, how hard would it be to get back into the NBA if something? I mean, do you really need the assurances? Because I would imagine, given his track record in the NBA and given what he did with the Oklahoma City Thunder, I can't imagine that you'd be hard up on finding a job in one of the 30 NBA teams. I mean, there are 30, 32, whatever it is. I think he'd be all right.
He'd be okay, but still, you'd have to go somewhere and start over and like build back up. Like, I'm just saying that's a pretty good job that you're not just going to leave because somebody you're close with is like, hey, come hitch your wagon to me and let me drive it off the cliff.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I don't know. I mean, it'll be
you're hearing that GMs may no longer be tiered to
tied,
staff, though.
tied
Say
to stuff.
it doesn't. It says TIRED.
Thing
Tiered.
tied. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Marcus. I got you.
So how the coach does isn't determinative of the GM. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's been Marcus. Have you been listening for the past 15 minutes?
Maybe he just joined the show. Settle down there, sport.
Just say it. That's what we have been discussing is there's going to have to be some level of no worries, dude. I'm just messing around. Like there's going to have to be some level of tie to more than just the head coach. So if the head coach doesn't work out, the GM isn't instantly connected to that.
Which is truthfully, that's how it should be. I mean,
correct.
Because the last thing you want, especially if you're the university, the last thing you want is to be in a situation that Cincinnati found itself in after the previous regime was here and the way that all went down, and you find yourself just in up a creek without a paddle, essentially, with the roster in turmoil and all of that. Now you've kind of given yourself assurances to not have a rudderless ship, if you will. If the coach does decide to go somewhere, you still have somebody working to make sure that there's a roster in place.
Right. Yeah. So that everything doesn't fall apart. But yeah, I mean, it's I think it's necessary. As long as you get as long as you have the right vision for it, right? Like, I don't think you can't, and what I say by that, like, you can't bring in a figurehead. Like, oh, so-and-so's the GM, but they're not actually going to, like, dig in and do GM things.
Well, so, we, in our last Aftermath, we talked about how I don't believe that the way that the roster was put together aligned with the coaching philosophy, which didn't seem to align with the offense. And so now, if your GM is the one in charge of making the hirings and firings of your head coach, at least their vision, the GM's vision, would be here's your roster. You find a coach that fits the roster that you have in place, which if you have a GM, though, I would imagine this is one step closer in my eyes to contracts for players.
Contracts for players are already happening.
Well, I mean more than 1 year contracts when you would have
Aaron. Nobody talks about it. More than 1 year contracts are happening for players. There are players on Cincinnati's roster that are on multi-year NIL contracts. That's not new. Now they're not long term.
To me, it's new.
It's being done more over the last 2 years. But those, I don't really talk about it much because those contracts aren't public. You can't verify that. You can't.
I guess what I'm getting at though is you would have contracts with the universities at that point,
right?
Where if you're coming, I think that's what I'm saying is you're getting one step closer to where you are tied. Like you can't just enter the portal because you did sign a contract, and at that point you're even closer to the NBA model because that's the way that everything has been shifting.
Did you see there was an article that came out Friday morning that a lot of these contracts, the rev share contracts, Aaron, they are multi-year and they are including a payback if you transfer. Like if you transfer, you have to pay back XYZ dollars that we already paid you because you did not complete your year contract or whatever.
Well, you also see plenty of stuff coming out about there's still kids that have been promised things from NIL that have been handshake and word of mouth promises that aren't coming to fruition, and kids are still getting ripped off by collectives. And I don't think that's anything happening here. But you're seeing agents talk about it more so than anybody. You saw what happened with UNLV and the football team. Yeah, I think it's just to the point where anybody who's doing a handshake and goodwill promises,
Yeah.
you've set yourself up for failure. Everything should be in writing at this point with any dollar.
How much does it help attract recruits to have a guy that just worked in the NBA? I'm sure it's absolutely something you mentioned, right? Hey, this guy that's our GM just left his job as a prominent NBA scout and he likes you. That means he can help you get to the NBA. Or, some sales pitch of a similar degree, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's encouraging about him coming into this role is the fact that he is an NBA scout, so he's already looked over the entirety of the college landscape. So he knows who he's already zooming in, zeroing in on for different, or at least a type of player. I'm sure he's got a vision for the roster already. If he is already in this position, I would imagine that he's looking at who's on the roster, what you want to construct around and kind of build out and all of that.
Here's an important part, Aaron. You know what? He's going to actually have a very specific knowledge of who are the guys that are right on the cut, like not who are the NBA guys, who are the college guys that are just a little bit not good enough, or like we've evaluated this guy a bunch of times. He's a really good college player, but he probably doesn't translate to the NBA. Okay, well, maybe we can go get that guy at a little less money. Like maybe that is like the value stuff that comes into this on like when you're picking through. Because if you're getting a guy that's like a fringe NBA guy, you're going to have to probably pay them similar to what the opportunities are going to be for them to play in the NBA. So if you got a guy that's not a surefire NBA guy that you know is a really good college player that you've evaluated, well, hey, maybe that guy is a good fit here because he's going to be great in college, but he's just maybe missing the length for the NBA or the overall athleticism for the NBA, or maybe he doesn't know how to get fouled or make free throws, so he'd be a good fit at Cincinnati. Like, you didn't find that joke funny?
I mean, if you're coming to Cincinnati, you can't make free throws. That's one of the things, right? Like,
or you're not to the free throw line.
Well, I mean, they don't call him dribble for nothing.
Joe, that's an oversimplification. That's not what I said. That's an oversimplification. He's going to have insights onto a lot of these guys that is going to help the process. He's going to be able to say pretty quickly, yes on this guy, no on this guy. Hey, let's go look at this guy. Hey, I know this agent, which let's make something clear. This is what a lot of this comes down to now in the procurement of transfer portal talent. Who is the agent? What kind of relationship do you have with the agent? And what is your ability to work on a deal with said agent, right? Like that is all part of this that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. So the GM theoretically is going to have a different level of insight into that portion of the process because that's something they already do, obviously, at the NBA level. Yeah, Marcus, we talked about that too since you were late. Like, have you given us the 5 push-ups for being late yet? OKC's great at it. If there's a disagreement on a player, won't the GM have the final say? That's, again, it's an oversimplification. Maybe on some he does, maybe on some he doesn't. Like, it's not just Corey Evans signs a contract that says, these are the things that Wes will not be able to tell me no about. They're going to work in combination. Why do you see
maybe Maybe that's John's new role. He gets to be the juror when they come to the table with their arguments.
He's the arbiter, Aaron. If there's, I mean, yeah. Will West shake up his staff? I don't know. Like, I don't think there's any like drastic. This guy's gone. Like that guy's gone. I think you're going to go through an off season where some guys are going to be in demand. Look, you don't recruit like this staff recruits and people not be interested in your guys as recruiting assistants. So, especially in where are, the recruiting assistants strong? That's why JC has a law degree.
That was funny.
I know, that's good. Where are Cincinnati's recruiting ties strong? The South, SEC territory, and the Midwest, Big Ten territory. Who has the most money to spend? The SEC and the Big Ten. So am I ruling out that Cincinnati's assistants could be poached? No, that's very clearly on the table. Do I think Wes is in a hurry to like completely revamp his staff in an off season where it is critical that they nail April? You don't want to do that necessarily without recruiting assistants. So that's a tough spot.
Yeah, I would agree.
Jack says he's a little worried a GM with NBA experience is going to target skilled guys that can pass and make open threes. It's just not Bearcat basketball.
It's not wrong.
You make a good point, Jack.
I see no lies.
We'll see. No lies detected. No lies detected. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at on the GM thing. Here's the other thing that you need to remember that is very important in the hiring of people in the offseason. The longer you can go before you make it official, the longer that person is working outside of the realm of the NCAA. If you're hiring somebody that's not in the NCAA, you're in no rush to put those constraints on that person. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So don't be surprised if there's not an announcement from Cincinnati on the hiring of a new GM for a couple weeks, because it doesn't make sense. It's not cheating, MA. That's the whole point. It's not cheating because you haven't hired him yet. He doesn't work for you.
Because there's no rules. You're
right. If you don't hire the guy, then the guy is not constrained by your rules.
He can buy these kids all the cheeseburgers he wants.
So just keep that in mind before you hit me with a week from now. When are we going to get a GM announcement? When are we going to get a GM announcement?
Maybe never.
Well, at some point you're going to have to, but
keep working over there.
You got to pay him at some point, Aaron.
Who? He can be on someone's payroll. It doesn't have to be the universities.
Aaron just turned into an owl.
Just saying.
Oh boy. Anything else you got on this? Any questions? Anything you want me to clarify? Yeah, keep him on the OKC payroll. Keep him off the Cincinnati payroll for as long as you can keep him off the Cincinnati payroll. I'll just say that.
I'm for it.
It's been happening for years and years and years. Like, hey, didn't so and so already hire this assistant? When are they going to announce it? At the end of the open recruiting period, so they can go do whatever they want.
Like when you bring in a scout from the Jets to your staff.
Right.
Weird.
Is what it is.
I'm good. Totally good with it. No, it's something that we're all definitely going to be keeping an eye on. Like I said, I'm extremely curious to see how this role expands and develops over time. Because I think that just being at the beginning is just the tip of the iceberg with what this role is going to eventually down the road evolve to. So I'm very, very curious, and I think it'll be fascinating.
I agree on that 100%. Let's get to some NCAA tournament stuff. We've already gone 50 minutes. The idea was to do this show for an hour. I don't know if we're going to get through NCAA tournament talk in an hour, but we'll do our best. You want to just bring up regions and kind of talk through regions, Aaron?
I think we should just bring up teams that shouldn't have made the tournament, like, I don't know, that team from Norwood, or teams that should have made the tournament, like, I don't know, that team from West Virginia.
I mean, we can go there first if you'd like. Tournament selection, Aaron. Were you surprised that North Carolina, that everybody thought was out, made it in as the last team into the field, while their athletic director was also the chairman of the NCAA tournament selection committee? Does that strike you as odd?
No, it'd be like a team from the SEC not making the college football playoff while what was it? What was the guy's name that was the head of that committee? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. So yeah, no. When these people are put in position, they certainly have a loud voice in the room. So no, I'm not surprised at anything. I'm truthfully, I'm more surprised that 14 of 16 SEC teams made it, because all you have to do is be in the conference. It doesn't matter who you beat. You just get in. That's stupid.
The thing that it is, 14 SEC teams and how many Big Ten?
I don't know off the top.
Was it 10 Big Ten teams? And I think what it was what there 34 at-large selections, and almost or just over half of them were from the Big Ten and the SEC for at-large at-large selections. So they got half, and everybody else got half.
That's stupid. What are we doing?
The one thing I did want to say that always cracked me up about the argument over like the selection committee having influence on who gets in is they're like, no, they make that person leave the room when they talk about them. So they do all this without the name of the teams, right? Like, you don't know what teams are what when they're going through this process. They're going over resumes. And then you get to a resume and you have to stop and
get out.
This guy, who you know is the athletic director at the University of North Carolina, has to get up and leave when they're talking about only this team. The only time he has to get up and leave is when North Carolina is brought up. You think they don't know that they're talking about North Carolina now?
They should have to leave when any team is brought up from your own conference.
Conference commissioners do.
Here's a crazy thought: bring in people who aren't tied to teams.
Right.
Bring in. Of course, you may have been a graduate or something. Of who knows? But bring in somebody who just like what they did the one year with the college football playoff when you had Condoleezza Rice on the committee and stuff. Not that was a great decision either. I still don't understand that one, but just bring in people who aren't necessarily tied to the sport, not necessarily tied to these universities, at least on the fucking payroll. I don't know.
But it's all, the funny thing is, Aaron, they do that, what you talked about, with conference commissioners. If there's a conference commissioner on the committee, every time one of the teams in their conference is brought up, that conference commissioner has to leave the room.
See, and
Last year,
I picture the room, a glass-walled office where you're just standing outside watching, and they know because you're watching their faces, you're watching their reactions, and they're watching you. Oh no, this whole thing stinks.
No, Connor, they do have to leave the room, but you're missing the point of it all. When that guy gets up and leaves the room, you have identified the team, and everybody in the room knows, oh, we should help Bubba. His name's Bubba, by the way.
Of course it is.
We should help Bubba get his team in. Yeah. So, yes, they have to leave the room. It is also an identifier, and I wouldn't believe, like, I don't even have to put the tinfoil hat on for this, Aaron, because it's been happening for 15, 20 years. As long as I can remember, you've been able to point to every time, I would say 95% of the times on Selection Sunday, Aaron, when we're sitting here going, that doesn't make any sense. And then you pull up the committee and you go, oh, there it is. Found it. Now it makes sense. Today, again, it made sense. Yeah, it's bigger than the Good Old Boys Club, but yes, Daryl, you are correct.
I'm just not surprised by any of it. Again, just you fix this situation if you don't have people who work for the teams in these committees.
But here's a vested financial stake in the outcome. Because when you get in, you get NCAA tournament credits for the games you play.
Yeah.
That goes to your conference and then gets redistributed back out to the teams. They're making money off of the thing that they are supposed to be objectively selecting.
And if you add what, 8 more teams to get to 76, does the entire SEC make it at that point?
No, because I think LSU and South Carolina were bad enough that they probably wouldn't have, but maybe. Like, those are the only 2 teams that didn't get in, right? LSU and South Carolina?
I don't care enough about the SEC to know. I just saw the stat of 14 of 16 teams and couldn't believe my eyeballs.
Yeah, so the 2 teams that didn't were South Carolina and LSU.
That's just absurd. Patently absurd. Win the games.
North Carolina was 1-12 in quad 1. Xavier was 1-9. So 2-21 in quad 1 gets you in the NCAA tournament. Okie dokie. I loved how, though, they quickly switched on North Carolina. Well, they were 8-0 in quad 2. 1-12 against good teams. Not as important as 8-0 against okay teams.
Well,
all right.
West Virginia had as many quad 1 wins as North Carolina, Xavier, and San Diego State combined.
So, Aaron, here's what we always get into is when you find the thing, right, that they have focused on that year.
Like, who's on the
somebody
committee?
gets screwed because they have to believe the lie, right? The lie is terrible, not below average records against quad 1. Terrible. 1-12, 1-9. Terrible records against quad 1. Well, it's not just quad 1. So somebody has to be the sacrificial lamb. Who was the sacrificial lamb? West Virginia. Why was West Virginia the sacrificial lamb? Because they had a guy get hurt in November. They said this on TV. Tucker DeVries played in 8 games all season, 30-game season. Tucker DeVries played in 8 games, none of them in the Big 12, where West Virginia went 10-10. They didn't get in because Tucker DeVries got hurt 8 games into the season.
Well, I've already told you this entire season has been banana land, and Josh Reed is the mayor. So
Yeah, it does open things up for Darren DeVries to go to Iowa without having to worry about the NCAA tournament this week.
there is that.
Let's roll through and look at the Big 12 in this tournament. Let's see. How's that look on screen? Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like that.
That'll work.
The other screw job, Louisville at 8. This is funny, Aaron. Louisville had almost the exact same on paper resume as Clemson, and they beat Clemson twice. And Clemson is a 5 seed, Louisville's an 8 seed. But you know who gets screwed in this situation? Potentially Auburn, who will have to play a Louisville team in the second round if Louisville wins and Auburn wins. They'd have to play a Louisville team that's off by 3 seed lines in Lexington in front of Louisville's home fan base.
Auburn is also arguably the best team this entire year. So if you can't beat a 5 seed even, then I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah, but that's not what should happen to the number 1 seed in the tournament.
Well,
they shouldn't have to have even an opportunity to play Louisville in Rupp Arena.
In the world of analytics and the world of AI and the world of any algorithm you can come up with, none of this shit should come down to humans putting it in slots anyway. Who cares?
I agree.
If you want it by the letter of the law, then have it all done by computer system ranks and analytics and algorithms and all that stuff. Otherwise, it is what it is.
Agreed. Big 12 team in this bracket, Iowa State. Iowa State also got bad news tonight, Aaron. Did you see that?
I did. Not coming back.
Keyshawn Gilbert out for the season. So you would assume Iowa State just slides Curtis Jones into the starting spot. But then Iowa State's bench gets really, really, really thin. And that is a team that, they were 7-7 in their last 14 games. I don't think they're going to have trouble with Lipscomb.
I think they're better with Curtis Jones starting anyway.
That might be. I'm sure they're going to be okay with Lipscomb. But then any of Ole Miss, San Diego State, and North Carolina can give them an issue without Keyshawn Gilbert. Like, this is awful news for Iowa State.
North Carolina barely made the tournament. They're not giving anybody any issues.
Aaron, they went 8-0 in quad 2. They didn't lose a single quad 2 game, Aaron.
Iowa State's not a quad 2 team. They should be just fine.
You're right. Damn, I forgot about that.
Just fine.
I'm glad you slam dunked that. I threw the lob up there pretty good for you. Let's take a look at the East. Baylor as a 9 against Mississippi State. That's an interesting one because those are 2 teams that kind of rode the wave.
Baylor, I mean, they bailed themselves out.
Yeah.
We weren't sure they were going to be able to even make the tournament, and they ended up saving their own ship, if you will. And I don't know. Baylor.
Look, I think Baylor's going to have the 2 best players on the floor in that game. Mississippi State's good, but I'm not taking anybody on Mississippi State over Norchad Omier and VJ Edgecombe.
Well, VJ Edgecombe might be the best player for what? How many rounds there?
Well, they might play Duke in the Sweet 16 or the second round. So is he better than Cooper Flagg? No.
Is Cooper Flagg going to be playing?
I would assume so. I would be surprised if he doesn't play.
We'll see.
At least by the second round. You probably don't play him against American or Mount St. Mary's, but I think you can get him back to right by round 2. Arizona taking on Akron, winner of the MAC. I do think Arizona has a good chance in this little pod. I would be a little bit weary of Akron, though, because this is a team that's been in the tournament a good deal. Like, they're not going to be blown away by the sights and sounds, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know. Arizona, they've been probably the weirdest of the top teams because they go as Caleb Love goes. And it's really going to kind of depend on what Caleb Love shows up.
It's the Caleb Love show, Aaron. You just don't know which one you're getting. There's no doubt about that. Then BYU. BYU VCU is styles make fights. VCU wants to punch you in the mouth. BYU wants to shoot threes all over your head.
They do.
So that one's going to be interesting. I love BYU there because I think VCU still tries to, it's not havoc like Shaka Smart style, but they still try to pressure you. And we've talked about a bunch, like the way you beat pressure is with the pass, and very few teams pass it the way BYU does.
Yeah. BYU, I mean, they still haven't lost, right? No, they did lose. They lost to Houston, right?
Yeah. Exciting Whites got their butt kicked.
Houston is very good.
Yes.
I don't expect BYU to have any issue with VCU. And truthfully, assuming it's Wisconsin, I think that should be a hell of a game that I would have zero surprise if BYU came out, not by a little, but by a lot.
Yeah. Baylor over Duke, screenshot it. Okay. I'll take your word for it. And then you look at Wisconsin BYU would be really interesting because that's two highly, like that could be another one of those BYU games where like 33s get made between the two teams.
96-92 or whatever that final was.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Midwest region. Houston, number one. This is another one of those things that this committee keeps doing, Aaron, much like, hey, Auburn, here's potentially Louisville in Lexington. Gonzaga is a top 10 team in all the predictive metrics. And Houston might have to play them in the second round. So that might be bad for Houston. It also might be bad for Gonzaga that they have a chance to really make a deep run, but instead you're going to have to play the Houston Cougars in the second round if they get by Georgia, which I'm not sure they get by Georgia. Georgia can beat them.
Well, I don't see anybody that's going to stop Houston from making it to the Sweet 16.
No. Clemson, McNeese State. I would keep an eye on that one. I love Vic. Will Wade. Let's see what the Will Wade situation is. Does he have a new job before this tournament starts?
That'll be very interesting if that's the case. I'd hope not. For McNeese, I would hope not.
Yes, but still.
But I get it. Timing is everything.
Yeah. The Bob Huggins assistant game right there, Aaron. Mick Cronin versus Jared Calhoun. That one's in Lexington, too. You think Mick's going to complain about being from L.A. and having to travel all the way to Lexington for an NCAA tournament game?
Is it an NCAA tournament if Mick Cronin isn't complaining?
Looking at the final bracket. Texas Tech, 3 seed against UNC Wilmington. I think this is a sneaky Final Four draw for Texas Tech.
I think Texas Tech is going to beat the brakes off of UNC Wilmington. Not even close. And then Missouri, Drake.
No.
Look,
I've got Texas Tech comfortably in the Sweet 16.
I would not be surprised at all if Drake upsets Missouri, truthfully. But I think Texas Tech is going to be just fine. I think that Texas Tech St. John's matchup will be very interesting.
I'm not ruling out Kansas or Arkansas getting out of this bracket on the bottom.
Well,
to the Sweet 16.
Count Patino is.
I mean, I don't know. I think St. John's is good. They defend, they're relentless, but they don't shoot it. Like, they're going to have in this tournament, however far they go, they're going to have a 22% shooting night from three. The only thing that can save them is your belief, that is also Rick Pitino's belief with this team. We're just not going to shoot a lot of them.
Oh, no, my belief is that he's a vampire and will actually suck the soul out of somebody.
So there you go. There's the NCAA tournament. Raj has got Auburn. Who's your champion, Aaron?
Man, if I'm being a conference homer, and I have zero issue doing that because that's who I've paid the most attention to this season. It's really, really tough to go against Houston. Roberts is back. He didn't miss a beat. They're deep. They're
they
tough.
do have more offense than they've had in the past.
Absolutely.
Sharp and Uzan. Uzan coming on as a scorer has changed them.
Yeah,
because it was just Sharp, right? It was just Sharp. It's like their
Crier.
And
Sharp was your sharp shooter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like the guy that stretches the defense and makes them different. And now Uzan's shooting it really well next to him. You've got Crier as kind of the creator. Roberts, like
how big is Tugler? How big has Tugler been? Francis now coming off your bench. That's your bench piece is Francis. They're really good. And like I said, if I'm being a conference homer, it's really tough to think of anybody beating Houston. We've seen them lose one time in 2025.
I still think Duke and Auburn are just ahead of Houston.
If that's the list.
Yeah, I think that's the list.
Houston's not a bad pick.
I've cracked up the entire last 2 weeks because we keep hearing like this might be the hottest team in the country. And I'm like, Houston went 19-1 in the Big 12 and walked through the Big 12 championship.
Yep.
Miss me with this might be the hottest team in the country. Get out of here. It's Houston. They've lost one game since November.
I just said that.
I know, like that's but like just making that like, but if Cooper Flagg's ankle is okay, it's Duke. Like their talent is substantially better than everybody else. Can John Shire take that to a national championship? That's the question.
I don't know
if Cooper Flagg's okay.
I don't know that Houston doesn't match up really well against Duke because I think they do.
Duke is just so much more gifted. 1 through 5.
Duke also played ACC teams their entire conference schedule. When was the last time they were really tested? North Carolina really gave it to them.
Did I mention like my ACC thing? No. You want to know how much difference there is between the ACC and the Big 12, Aaron? Cincinnati 2 years in a row has just absolutely beat the piss out of Georgia Tech. Like Georgia Tech was one of the bye games. Like those 2 games against Georgia Tech they looked no different, if not maybe at times worse than the bye games. Georgia Tech went 10-10 in the ACC.
Tells you everything you need to
and beat Louisville and Clemson. The teams that finished second and third. So that's my rant on how soft the ACC is this year, but I digress. Cooper Flagg's just, and then that roster is the best roster in the sport. Can John Shire take them to a championship? That's the question at hand. That's the question at hand. Do you believe in Auburn?
I don't believe in Auburn. I believe in Bruce Pearl because that man can win some games.
Auburn more than I believe in Bruce Pearl.
Well, that makes one of us.
What's Bruce Pearl's crowning accomplishment as a college basketball coach?
He's got plenty of skins on the wall.
I asked the biggest. What's the biggest?
Probably the way that he skated after being caught cheating. But
I mean, that was pretty weak.
I know.
That was pretty weak.
It's probably his crowning achievement.
I mean, look, let's see. Elite Eight. He did make the Final Four at Auburn in 2019. That's it. He's made one Final Four outside of that, one Elite Eight. And what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 Sweet 16s. He's a great coach. When it comes to March, he's had one Elite Eight and one Final Four. And he's had a long coaching career.
He has had that.
Yeah, Daryl, that is one of the biggest concerns about Houston. If they play a team where the refs are calling it tight, foul trouble is going to be an issue. I think they have more. I think they have more to overcome it this year than they have in some years past, because they have more guys that can kind of step up and get you. Like we talked about Cryer and Uzan and Sharp and Roberts. Like, now they've got 4 guys on the floor most of the time that can score 20. So that makes them a little bit different than some of the situations they've been in the past. I'm going to go with Duke, though. Let me go Duke.
Right,
I don't feel great about it. The other thing I wanted to point out, the SEC, go back and look. There's like 3 times we've gotten into this conversation of like greatest conference ever going into the NCAA tournament. And that conference has usually fallen flat on its face in the NCAA tournament. So just keep that in mind.
I hope they all lose.
With the SEC.
I hope they all lose first round. That'd be fun.
That's Dave told you guys in the group chat that that's not going to happen.
Lose first weekend, then. Who cares?
Nobody in this 14 teams out. Of the 32 teams out in the first 2 rounds, 14 of them are going to be the SEC.
Great.
All right. We appreciate you guys. Big crowd tonight. Thank you. We appreciate you joining us for a special Sunday night live show. We will be back tomorrow night. We'll see what kind of shape Brent is in at that point. But that's the nightcap, brought to you by Hail Mary Sports Bar, right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!